Hello companions, welcome to Deep Gyan Power. By subscribing, support this journey of knowledge and help it move forward. Today I'm not going to talk to you about something ordinary. Today we will talk about a mystery that everyone has seen, but very few have truly understood. Today we will talk about the mystery of a woman's eyes. Pause for a moment and think. When you look into a woman's eyes, do you see only beauty? Or has it ever happened that without saying a single word, her eyes said everything? Sometimes her eyes gave you peace, and sometimes those same eyes stirred something deep within you. This is where the story begins. Do women's eyes truly hold a divine power? In ancient India, a woman was never seen as just a body. She was not considered merely a structure of flesh and bones. She was described as a living, awakened form of energy. The Vedas, Upanishads, and Tantra Shastra call woman Shakti, and the first gateway of Shakti is vision. The Vedas say, a woman's gaze is like the moon. Now try to understand this deeply. The moon is not harsh. It does not burn like the sun. There is no sharpness in its light. And yet, in the darkest night, that very moon shows the way. In the same way, a woman's eyes make no noise, they give no orders, they create no pressure. But within their calmness exists a power that penetrates deep into the other person. Have you ever noticed? When a woman looks at you silently, something within you begins to change. Sometimes without a single word you feel understood. Sometimes by looking into her eyes you begin to see your own mistakes. This is not coincidence. The scriptures say, a woman's eyes are the bridge between the mind and the soul. Her gaze emerges directly from the heart and therefore reaches straight to the heart. Look at the nature of the moon. It moves even the oceans. The tides are controlled by it. But the moon never fights the ocean. It simply remains present. In the same way, a woman's eyes carry a silent influence. They do not change the other person. They force him to look at himself. And that is the greatest power. That is why ancient wisdom says, never take a woman's gaze lightly. Because a gaze filled with love can heal wounds, and a gaze filled with neglect can break someone from within. This power does not lie in words, it lies in presence. You may have noticed, sometimes tears appear in a woman's eyes for just a moment and the person in front of her becomes restless without reason. Why? Because it is not just emotions that flow from a woman's eyes, it is energy. And when that energy is soaked in sorrow, it affects the entire surrounding environment. That is why the Vedas say, a woman's eyes are not merely tools for seeing. They are a message, they are a warning, and many times, they are a blessing. When a woman looks with love, security is born. When she looks with compassion, healing begins. And when she looks in silence, truth starts to reveal itself. That is why it is said, a woman's eyes do not make noise, but they affect deeply. They do not change the outside world, they awaken the inside. And this is the true identity of divine power. Why is it said, a woman's eyes are the mirror of the soul? You have heard this line many times in books and discourses or from elders, but often we treat it as a beautiful sentence and move on. While the truth is, behind this one line lies the entire essence of yoga, tantra, and self-knowledge. Eyes are not merely instruments of vision. They do not only see the outer world, they reveal the inner world. That is why scriptures say eyes are the mirror of the soul. Yoga Shastra says, every state of the mind first appears in the eyes. You can force a person to lie, but his eyes will speak the truth. You can ask someone to hide pain, but his eyes will reveal the tremble. Because eyes cannot be controlled, they reveal. Now when it comes to women, this truth goes even deeper. The scriptures say, a woman's mind is more sensitive than a man's. This does not mean weakness, it means receptivity. A woman's mind does not just understand emotions, it lives them. And a mind that experiences so deeply, its eyes connect directly with the soul. That is why when a woman looks with love, the other person feels safe without reason. No promises are made. No assurances are given. Yet somewhere within, a deep calm descends. Why? Because that gaze has no selfishness. That gaze has no fear. That gaze says, you are accepted as you are. And that is what the soul desires the most. But when the same woman is in pain, her eyes do not just fill with tears. Her eyes carry the sadness of the entire universe. A silent emptiness descends, a wordless ache. And seeing that pain, the person in front becomes restless. Because a woman's eyes are not only hers, they influence the entire environment. Tantra Shastra says, eyes are gateways of energy. When the mind is calm, peaceful energy flows from the eyes. When the mind is disturbed, restless energy flows out. And because a woman's mind holds emotions more deeply, the energy emitted from her eyes is even more powerful. That is why it is said, "Do not play with a woman's eyes." Because there is not just beauty there is truth. There is everything that words cannot express. Eyes are the mirror of the soul does not mean eyes reveal everything. It means whatever is happening in the soul cannot be hidden. And in a woman's eyes, this mirror is even clearer. So whenever you look into a woman's eyes, do not just try to see. Try to feel. Because what you will witness there will not be of the eyes. It will be the truth of the soul. Now let us understand this a little deeper. People say, someone cast an evil eye. Modern science laughs at this, but ancient wisdom smiles silently. Tantra Shastra says, subtle energy waves flow from every human's eyes. When someone looks with jealousy, greed, or anger, his gaze carries imbalanced energy. And who is affected the most by the evil eye? Children, beautiful women, pregnant women. Why? Because their energy is open and delicate. Now pause for a moment and remember your mother. That face, those eyes, especially the time when you were sick. Your body was weak, your mind was anxious, and your mother said nothing. No lecture, no question, she simply looked at you. What was in that gaze? No scolding, no fear, no complaint, only compassion. A compassion that needs no words. The scriptures say, a mother's gaze is not just an act of seeing, it is a flow of energy. When a mother looks at her child, protective energy flows from her eyes. That is why the moment a child comes into his mother's lap, he stops crying. Because there is no logic there is healing. Have you ever thought, a child recognizes his mother's eyes before her voice? A newborn understands no language of the world, yet instantly feels his mother's gaze. Why? Because the energy flowing from a mother's eyes directly balances the child's energy field. This is not beyond science. It is deeper than that. Yoga Shastra says, every human being is surrounded by a subtle energy field. A child's energy field is extremely delicate, extremely open, and a mother's gaze acts as armor for that energy field. That is why when a child gets frightened, the mother simply looks at him and the fear slowly dissolves on its own. There is something unique about a mother's eyes. She sees the child's mistakes but does not turn them into blame. She sees the pain but does not deepen it. Her gaze says, I am here, and for the soul there is no greater reassurance. That is why it is said, a mother's eyes are the first glimpse of God. Because God does not correct by frightening. He nurtures through compassion, and that same divinity shines in a mother's gaze. You may have noticed, sometimes a mother silently keeps looking at you. She says nothing, she asks for nothing. Yet within that silent gaze lies a complete prayer for your safety, your happiness, your future. So never take a mother's eyes lightly. Because within them is not just love, there is the power to protect life itself. And perhaps that is why the safest place in the world is considered to be a mother's lap. Because behind that lap stands the compassion of a mother's eyes. Now let us talk about the lover's gaze and the power of attraction, and the mother's gaze that protects from the evil eye. A woman's eyes are not made only to see. They are made to touch life. And when the same woman becomes a lover and becomes a mother, the power of her gaze takes two different forms. But the core energy remains the same, pure emotion. First, let us talk about the lover's gaze. Have you ever experienced when a woman in love simply looks at you and you begin to feel special? She has said nothing. She has promised nothing. Yet your heart starts beating faster. Why? Because attraction in a lover's gaze is born not from words but from energy. Tantra Shastra says, where there is emotional connection, eyes become the most powerful medium. In a lover's eyes there is desire, acceptance, and a hint of surrender. That gaze does not bind the other person, it pulls him towards itself. That is why sometimes a single glance from a woman has more impact than 1,000 words. But if this same power of attraction is used with imbalanced emotions, the same gaze can become the cause of the evil eye. And this is where the mystery of a mother's gaze begins. Now look at a mother's eyes. There is no attraction there. There is no possession. There is only protection. The scriptures say, a mother's gaze creates an invisible shield around her child. That is why even during high fever, a child calms down the moment his mother looks at him. You may have seen, a mother applies a black dot to her child or says, may no evil eye fall upon you. People call this superstition. But ancient wisdom says, A mother does not do this out of fear, she does it out of experience. Because a mother knows not every gaze looks with love. A mother's eyes can recognize the evil eye. When a child suddenly becomes irritable or starts crying without reason, the mother's gaze changes first. She simply stares at the child. And within that silent gaze lies a prayer. May nothing happen to my child. Tantra Shastra says, a mother's gaze absorbs negative energy. She herself becomes tired but keeps the child safe. That is why a mother's life is often difficult, because she protects her child not only with her body but also with her gaze. Now observe the difference between these two gazes. A lover's gaze adds color to life. It attracts. It connects. A mother's gaze saves life. It becomes a shield. It gathers and protects. But both share one common element, purity of emotion. When a woman's gaze flows from pure emotion, it becomes a blessing. And when the same gaze looks with jealousy or ego, it becomes the evil eye. That is why scriptures say, keep your gaze pure. Because eyes do not just see, they transmit energy. That is why a lover's eyes can lift a man to the skies. And the same woman as a mother can protect him from every harmful influence. This is the completeness of a woman's gaze. So never consider a woman's eyes a weakness. They can become a bond, and they can become a shield of protection. And that is why ancient India said, where a woman's gaze is pure, life remains safe. Woman and the deep connection with the third eye. Now we come to the most mysterious point, a woman's intuition. You may have noticed, many times a woman senses the truth without any proof. She says, I don't know why, but it doesn't feel right. And later that turns out to be true. The scriptures say a woman's third eye is naturally more active. The reason is, a woman's hormonal system is connected to lunar energy. That is why women enter meditation more easily, receive signs through dreams, and feel emotions deeply. What does science say about this? Now let us turn to science. Modern research shows many brain nerves are connected around the eyes. Pupil dilation, constriction, blinking patterns, all are linked to emotions. In women, these changes are more evident. What does this mean? A woman's eyes transmit emotional energy more rapidly. That is why sometimes a silent look from a woman says more than 1,000 words. Now the most important question, how to protect and enhance this power? First remedy, salute the sun with your eyes in the morning. Second remedy, moon gazing on a full moon night with a calm mind. Third remedy, use kohl not only for beauty but for energy protection. Fourth remedy, Tratak meditation on a flame. And the simplest remedy, keep your gaze pure. Look at everything with love. In conclusion, a deep truth. A woman's eyes are neither a weakness nor just attraction, they are a living power. If you are a woman, do not take your gaze lightly. And if you are a man, do not see a woman's eyes as an object to be looked at. Because within that gaze lies the capacity to nurture creation and the power to transform it. If this knowledge reached your heart, then pass it on to others. Because when knowledge spreads, darkness fades on its own. If you watch the video till the end, do not forget to subscribe, because ahead even deeper knowledge is waiting for you. Thank you.